Mother-Daughter-Duopodcast. Hello, my name is Danielle of the Mother-Daughter Duo Podcast. To my right is my mother, Jean Perkins of the Mother-Daughter Duo Podcast.
Hello.
Thank you again for tuning in another Tuesday. Let's see. We are sponsored by M5, Mommy Monday Morning Motivation Meetup. Read the context below. Let us open up with a mommy moment of the week. A mommy moment of the week is just explaining anything in our week as a mother that was impactful, something you were able to do for yourself, something that brought clarity, something that was really sweet from your children. So take it away.
My mommy moment, I would say, would be my son reaching out to you and I on yesterday or the night before, I think it was. So on Sunday night to ask us to meet him for breakfast. Let's go out to breakfast the next night. And then, paying for our breakfast on yesterday. So those moments are very, I can't get those back. We can't get those back. So to see my son do that and then, take the responsibility of paying, knowing that, he's single and he has his own, bills and things to pay for, but he sacrificed. Or I don't even want to say
you just raised him right.
Yeah, so
a gentleman.
Just to see him do that for me, kind of brings clarity, as the word you use, that when he was growing up, and you think you're teaching, and you think it is falling on deaf ears, but then you kind of see it now, and I see it come back, and I'll be like, wow, it stuck, or I did he all right. So yeah, that was my mommy moment.
Very sweet. Yeah. Do you remember what the place was called? Shabara?
Something over on 6th Ave.
This is, again, if you're
Chakra. Chakra. There you go.
Chakra. Thank you. So you've been... Yes, Chakra, very good breakfast. The potatoes are awesome, and I think that's what they're mostly known for, different versions of the potatoes. Yes, that was really sweet. Bruce does try to do that as often as he can, but bringing us into his world because he really likes food, likes to go out and enjoy himself. And when he doesn't always call or return our calls, I think this is the one way that he does try to reconnect with the family. And it's always good catching up, catching laughs. We use humor to really, our thing as a family unit is humor. And that's what we use to kind of get through situations. And and then him being an uncle to my son for Father's Day was really sweet. My mommy moment, I will say, is, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, I applied to a grant. I've applied to another grant, and I've reached the next phase. They said that I can continue on. So to know that, I've put out in the atmosphere something that I want to do for myself, for business, for the sake of my son, and to see that I'm on track. Before, when I would try to do things like that, it would just kind of like fall by the wayside. But now gaining some momentum gives me reassurance that I'm on the right path. So that's my mommy moment. I am going to do the Mother May I, and these are questions that once we start to put out podcasts to the general public, these are questions that we get from the general public about different personal experiences from single moms. This particular question comes from the Baby Center platform. If you're not familiar with Baby Center, gives you a lot of great resources. It's basically an app where you can track your pregnancy progress and track your weeks. Additionally, within the app, there are forums, different resources and outlets that you can use as a single mom, pregnant, expecting mother. So this question, the title says, Feeling Alone, says, I'm 5 months pregnant and about to lose a job that I started 3 months ago. I'm not performing well, and I am unprepared to be unemployed at this stage. My boss basically said I have 30 days of I'm out. I'm assuming that means that if you don't perform within 30 days, you're going to be let go. And that has made my anxiety so bad that I cannot concentrate. I have panic attacks every morning, and I can feel the darkness settling in. I'm not sure what I'm looking for here. Mother, may I? This is where I'm posing the question first and foremost to you. I do try to give my 2 cents afterwards, but what would you say to this young lady who is 5 months pregnant, about to lose her job, and has already been told from her boss that her performance is lackluster and she has 30 days before she may be let go?
Our mental health, I go back to that. I think people always, first she needs to get into some type of counseling to try to, I'm sure she might be, I don't know if she's 5 months pregnant with a significant other, or she's alone and she's 5 months pregnant, but she has to get to the root of why she's feeling the way she's feeling and going down this dark hole. And with the impending, looming over her is the possibility of she might lose her job, therefore not able to financially take care of herself nor the child she's bringing in the world. That's a lot. And so she needs to be able to express that to someone. And sometimes, a lot of times, we just sit in our thoughts, sit in our feelings, and it becomes overwhelming. So I would suggest she find someone to speak to. If she is going to her doctor, not the pediatrician, but
OBGYN.
her OBG, she needs to express how she's feeling to them so that they can possibly set her up with counseling, because she got to get to the root of that or it won't get better. So I would strongly encourage her to seek counseling.
Well, this post was just a month ago, actually, was May of 2022. So you think about the climate that we're in, that can add a lot of mental and emotional angst. Absolutely. And then she's 5 months pregnant, so she's very hormonal. So
absolutely.
I think all of those factors do contribute. I actually was experiencing this, and I remember when I told my boss I was not in the best state of mind. And actually, you and Robert were like, why would you tell your boss that?
I don't know why I said that. But she was, like, I said that because you were saying she was alone, so I'm feeling like she has no one else to, and maybe her employer can help her get to the count.
To people. So that's actually the reasoning for me sharing that with my supervisor was. And then she was able to, put a lot of things in place. Okay, you're feeling like this. There is employment assistance programs that are available to you. Let's get you 5 weeks of free counseling. She also said there are things like personal leave that you can take for things like your emotional health and well-being. So maybe that's something that you can also inquire about. But then also you mentioned you had been there 3 months. So to me that says that you got through that 90-day grace period, which makes you which gives you access to all of the benefits now that you're like considered fully contracted and employed at that employer. So you should have access to a lot of these benefits if they're available. I would urge you to reach out and inquire about those as you suggested. In closing, I'm still thinking about the topic that I want to talk about. 2 things.
So in closing, the mommy, you just closed. What was that we talked about?
The Mother May I.
Okay, so we
the
closed
Mother May
that.
I segment.
Moving on to our
topic of the day.
Okay.
So I posed to you the other week, and mind you don't like when I do that because you want it to be organic, but I like to kind of like put the what is it called? Put the something in your back.
Battery
in your back. So you kind of know where you want to take it. But I think I do want to bring up the topic of daddy issues.
Okay.
So, where you might not necessarily feel you had daddy issues, I just want to kind of unpack that. The reason why I think it's important, again, the podcast is about generational curses, mental health issues, childhood traumas, and societal stigmas that single mothers face. And I think that there is something to a lot of the history for some single moms that find themselves in a repeated cycle because of the lack of a male figure. And I never really attributed any of that to my upbringing. Like, I never made a correlation between the two. But if I'm taking accountability, as I'm understanding myself more, my experiences, I think there may be some things to unpack there. So, going to your situation first and foremost, you were raised by both your grandparents and then later in life by your mom. Your dad was absent partially because, well, he passed right away, right?
Right. So I was raised by my grandparents. I think when people say both your grandparents, they might be thinking my grandparents on my mom's side, my grandparents on my father's side.
Well, I meant both your grandparents and your mom.
So I was raised up until I was 10 years old by my grandparents on my mother's side, and my grandfather passed away when I turned 10, I think it was. And then I went to go live with my mother in Chicago.
So it wasn't up until he passed that you moved. Do you think you would still be living with your grandparents and never have moved back with your mom?
I probably would have still. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I would have still been staying with them until I turned 18 and graduated from high school, or if at some point in time I got to the age where I went to go stay with my mother. I really don't know. I don't know that dynamic. I think my mother had wanted to get me before then, but I think my grandparents just wouldn't let her. The reason why I ended up in their care, now this is the story that I've been told, is at that time, we're talking about the 60s, and at that time my mother comes from 11, it was 11 of them, and social services or welfare at the time. My grandmother, we're talking about Logan, West Virginia, and the only economy that they had down there that was kind of big was working in the coal mine. So, my grandparents were old. And so my uncle had just graduated high school and was going into the military during the time of the Vietnam. That was in the Vietnam era. And so when he graduated, then my grandparents were cut off of assistance. And so in order for them to continue to get the assistance, and my mother being a young mother and living away, it all kind of correlated and worked out where they asked her, let us raise Jean, and they adopted me, and they were able to continue to keep their assistance. She went on with her life in Chicago, Illinois, for a period of time, and I believe that that's where I got most of my foundation is with my grandmother.
One story I remember you saying is like the one time you believe that you met your dad, and it was not even a very direct conversation. It was your grandfather standing at the door speaking to a young man, and you kind of like peering behind your grandfather. Want to talk about that and what happened to your dad?
So the reason my mom and dad weren't together is because the same thing that happens in 2022 is the same thing that happened in 1960. He talked my mama out of her good stuff. And then when she got pregnant, he said, are you sure the baby is mine? And he was her first, and she was devastated. And so, she ended up pregnant at 21. And so moving forward, he came to West Virginia. And I think sometimes now, my mother said this. She said, he didn't come down there to see you. He came to sign papers giving you up for your adoption. Now, I don't know if she meant to be forthcoming with information. I don't know if she wanted to hurt my feelings. Unsaid. Or just to give me some clarity on what happened. But when he came down there and him and my grandfather were standing in the living room, I was in the dining room peeking around the door. And my grandfather was a tall man. My father was not. And I peeked around the corner to look at this man because they made me go in the other room. And my grandfather stood in front of my dad, but my father peeped around. And I know it was him because I have the pictures now of my father. So I now know that that's who it was. And he peeked around my grandfather to look at me, and our eyes met. And that's the only thing that I remember, that I saw this man come to my, come to our house.
But ultimately, he passed away because he was very ill.
Yeah, he passed away because he had cancer.
At what age was that?
He was in his 30s.
So your grandfather passed away when you were 10.
Yep.
And your dad you did not have a relationship with. So at that time, who were the kind of father figures in your life?
Up in my grandfather. And then when he passed away and I had to, move on and, move with my mother, unfortunately.
I mean, the father figures, not just the people that were around, but people that
Well, I'm going to say, unfortunately, I cannot recall my mother was married. So I went to go stay with my mother. And she was married to a gentleman that was...
He was not a father figure.
He was not my father figure. I cannot remember ever gleaning anything from him. If anything, he was, really detrimental to me. So, no, I didn't glean anything from him. So I held on to those fragments of what I knew a father was from the relationships that I had with my aunts, my uncles at the time. My mother had seven brothers. So, and at that time when I grew up around them, I remember holding on to that. And so I just kind of held on to fragments of what a father was, because I just didn't have that after I went to go live with my mother from the age of 10 years old, because I had my 11th birthday there in Chicago.
So it's remarkable to me that you always, the opposite of me, like you have always had this vision that you wanted to still be married because you witnessed a healthy marriage between your grandparents. Even though it was fragmented, you were young. Not the situation was fragmented, but like you just said, you have fragmented memories because it was a long time ago. That still has been so instrumental in your life that would cause you to still want to be married.
Right. There was nothing that I saw in their relationship that would make me want not to get married. And also my aunts and uncles. Remember, my mother had 7 brothers, and then she had 3 sisters. So it was 11 total. All of them were married. So I saw their relationships as well. So when I say fragments, they were fragments because after my grandfather passed, I still held on to what I saw growing up. I still had my aunts and uncles.
Right, but it was so powerful enough for you to still have that desire to be married.
Right. And want the nucleus, right, of a father, yeah,
Nucleus
or a family.
The whole white picket fence,
Yeah, I used to always dream of that. So that's funny you say that. In my mind, it was a white picket fence, and I always had that vision.
But you also have been very, and I know it comes a lot with you having morals as far as your parenting, but you also have been in very few relationships.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I guess I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. But for me, like a lot of women will say, I was a very promiscuous person as a young person. And a lot of people will attribute that to having no dad in the household. I would say that it was just my desire to just kind of like enjoy my 20s.
Was it 20s or was it teens? Because you said you were promiscuous. So at what age are you talking that you were?
Yeah, I was teen. I mean, adult life, because I was Job Corps from 16 to 18, wasn't doing much at that time. So when I started to be able to date, you did always encourage me to date. I did make sure that I dated and I was courted. I've dated a lot of different type of individuals. So I would not necessarily say that I just was out there free nilly-willy with every single person that I dated. But at the age that I did not preserve that space like some women have. And most people will attribute that to saying, well, you just had a lot of daddy issues, and that's why you kind of were out there trying to find that in another man. I never thought that. I was always just like,
I never said that either.
You never have.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that.
No, but I'm just saying that is what a lot of single girls kind of get that do kind of have that path.
Or that's what people from the outside looking in might say, not really having the information, saying, right.
Yeah. So I'm just like, is there anything to that? Because my dad was not actively around, because I didn't have any active father figures. I think that both can happen. I think you can still have a father figure in your life and still choose to kind of be promiscuous,
True.
Be curious, and just want to for me, living in Tacoma, that was a part of my fun. Going out, dating, partying, happening to like a gentleman that you encounter, wanting to date him, and it turns into something else. I know you're like, oh my Lord.
Well, you used the word, you said, and I did date because that's something that you advocated for me to do. So I did. I was courted. So tell me what courted means, because I used to always fuss at you about, these guys pulling up to the house blowing.
Well, no, I said there was there were an array of different men that I've dated. And I don't know about how many guys actually came to the house and were blowing.
Yeah,
you might be talking about one person.
Yeah, well, I don't. But
I'm talking about I've dated
to the house and saying, "It's Danielle home."
That's not
and
true.
You know me coming in. No.
Juan Ramos, he came to the house with flowers and chocolates and did the whole nine. I was not physically attracted.
The boy from
the airport.
Olympia.
Airport. I've dated people in the military that were very southern, and put on the southern charm that you actually liked.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but it did happen. I've dated the hoodlums. I've dated the no good ones, but I've always kept in my mind that Javon came to church in Easter.
Yeah, I remember Javon. But, I would always, we go back and forth, or we went back and forth. And one of the things I did not like was just a young man pulling up to the house. And then Danielle is like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm like, what? No, you make a man come to the door. And so her and I would go back and forth about that.
People. You like certain people, but I guess your memory does
not
recollect.
That's what they did in the old days.
No, I believe in that kind of courtship.
Okay, Danielle.
I do. I just know also there were certain people I didn't expect that from. They weren't that type of individual, and I wasn't seeing myself going very far with that individual, so I did not care. I didn't need you to meet every single person that I dated, because every single person was not worthy of it. It was just a good time, fun, and kicking it at that time. But the ones that I wanted you to meet, you met. But I guess I just say that to say, I don't know. Daddy issues. Do you feel like, looking back, because you did not have the examples in your life from a full spectrum of life, I guess, do you feel like it was the reason why you did not did you not date a lot, or you were so reserved about dating, or did you feel like it was any correlation at all?
No. No, I don't think so. Me not dating a lot. So turned 18, went off to college. From college and didn't do well there, joined the military. So from the time I got here, at the age of around 23, I think it was, 22, 23, here to Washington, my first duty station. And I think within maybe a year and a half, I was pregnant with you. So, and then and then got married. So got pregnant with you, then got married. And, that didn't work out. Your dad, between your dad and I. And in my mindset, I was in the military, and I'm a single mom, and I just was very reserved about bringing men over my kids. So I won't say that because that, me not having my dad had anything to do with me being reserved in dating. I'm just saying I was trying to not expose my children. And I'm glad I had the presence of mind to not expose my children to different men. So, and then I had Bruce. So then when I did date somebody else, and I had your brother, again, now I got two people that I'm trying to protect and have some stability in the area of morality and values. And so I just didn't bring a lot of people.
That's where I'm at now. And I think that both can pretty much, in closing, both can pretty much happen. You can either have your dad actively present in your life and you can still choose to go down the wrong path.
That's true.
Or you can have the absence of a father and, like me, be very promiscuous. Both can happen. And don't let society, if you don't feel that those labels resonate with you, you don't have to subscribe to those labels. For me, it's something that I do want to explore a little more, and I probably will do that with, in confidence with a counselor to really determine if I feel like those, the lack of my father had anything to do with the trajectory that I chose as a young adolescent. But in closing.
Well, and I want to say, however, we're talking about you and me as women, I still think your brother is not here. And I don't know, we did have a small conversation about it, but I still believe that a lack of a man in the home, even though my son is doing well, I think my son missed out on a lot of, because I was I was trying to raise him right, but I was too busy coddling him at the same time. And I think he would have benefited from.
You never said that in life before.
I think he would have benefited from having a man in his life to show him, what a man does and how a man takes care of a home. And I think my son's life probably would have been a whole lot better had I had a man in the home. Now, that's my personal opinion. As she said, sometimes a young lady have her father in the house and still be promiscuous. And the same could be true for having a son. Not just necessarily promiscuous, but the values that a man, right, the values that a really strong man with good character the values that they could bring and impart upon the son, I think, are invaluable. So I think my son missed out on that. I tried to make him strong, but I know that my son could have benefited from a man being actively, especially his dad, being actively engaged in his life.
So if you cannot make the connection with the father of your children, find healthy mentorship. But also in the absence of that, as you're trying to work to attain that and bridge those gaps, do not feel less than, do not fill a void, and do not come down on yourself because there is not currently a father figure in your life. I think, all you can do is continue to try, and every season, you just kind of work to get better. But like I said, don't allow the white picket fence and the nucleus family and those ideals, really impact you in such a way that you feel like, brings you to a state of depression or anything that you feel like you can't come out of. Daddy issues may be a thing, but ultimately, like I said, I'm going to seek counseling to find out if that is something that I want to choose to use as a label for my situation. But do what is best for you and yours. And that is another episode of the Mother Daughter Duo podcast. We are rocking our shirts today. You can also get more information on our shirts within the description. But thank you as always for supporting.
Bye-bye.